Hey guys, today I want to make a new video on why this Ascendancy Deadeye is potentially going to be the best in the new patch and why so many people are talking about it. I've probably seen a lot of people talk about that we're going to roll Deadeye, and I want to go all the reasons why Deadeye is just so strong in the new and upcoming patch, potentially even better than last patch, which is quite insane because Deadeye is already known to be one of the strongest in the game. So there's actually a lot of reasons why Deadeye is going to be, stronger in 0.3. So first things first, Deadeye only got one nerf in total, and the only nerf to this was the avidity node. So the avidity node is right here, this node. This got changed to where it's 50% chance to gain one frenzy instead of 30% chance to gain max frenzies. While that is a quite substantial nerf, it only nerfs frenzy-based attack builds, and outside of really spears, there wasn't that many frenzy-based attack builds. Like, you can use frenzy with bows, but most people currently don't really do frenzy-based bow attacks. So the nerf honestly isn't all that big of a deal, especially if you played bows or crossbows, kind of just like a minor spear nerf. But on the other hand, the other pure dex class, Amazon did receive a pretty sizable nerf in the crit scaling. It lost like 6 to 7% base crit, which was like the whole reason why you played Amazon in the first place. So, while Amazon got nerfed, Deadeye more or less stayed the same, which in turn also makes more people play Deadeye. Next is Evasion Buffs, and this is pretty massive. So in the new patch, there's a new defensive mechanic called Deflect, which gives you anywhere from 0 to 100% chance to reduce incoming damage by 40%. You can increase this percent chance to deflect through evasion, affixes on your gear, and your skill tree. This is just to give pure evasion-based characters a way to reduce incoming damage. It seems to be an extremely strong mechanic. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how easy it is to get a 100% deflect chance, but hopefully this does make pure evasion a lot more viable, rather than being forced into the evasion/ES hybrid that all Deadeyes and Amazons were playing, because pure evasion was just quite squishy. So yeah, this is a pretty massive buff because it's going to be a lot more versatility in your gear and skill tree choices, instead of always being forced to come up here to make sure you're always grabbing these evasion hybrid nodes. You can now maybe go down here and stuff, or just not go up here, right? It's going to give you a lot more choices in your skill tree and your gearing as well. The new Deadeye Ascendancies nodes are potentially really insane, and it's definitely a big reason why a lot of people want to play Deadeye. So the new Called Shots Ascendancy node, this one right here, currently you can apply additional mark, kind of weak, no one picks it. The new one is quite insane though. So the new Called Shot Ascendancy node makes all your projectiles chain to any nearby mark target, so you get free chain. But most importantly, it also gives you this new meta skill, which repeatedly casts mark skills on nearby enemies for you, and these mark skills also bypass the 1 mark limit, so you can cast multiple marks on multiple enemies, and only Deadeye can do this. Now, this is pretty strong in a new patch for one specific new reason, because in the new patch, mark skills are no longer considered spells, meaning that they cannot be used with stuff like cast on crit and the other similar effects as well. So the only way to apply a mark in a new patch is just by self-casting it, unless you play Deadeye. So yeah, overall, this makes Deadeye a lot stronger for anyone that wants to abuse marks in a new patch, because Deadeye is pretty much the only way you're going to abuse marks, because you cannot use stuff like cast on crit anymore. Not to mention, this might just be insane for clear. If you just put Voltaic on this and you constantly cast Voltaic mark on targets around you, plus the free chain as well, it does look very, very strong. And the other Ascendancy change is the new Eagle Eye. So current Eagle Eye is also kind of weak. You have no accuracy penalty at distance. Doesn't really matter all that much. No one really takes it currently. But the new one applies 20 critical weakness on consuming a mark and an enemy. Now 20 critical weakness gives you effectively 10% base crit, which is really, really strong. If you play crit builds, you know how strong this 10% base crit is. On a lot of characters, it just straight up doubles your crit chance. So this is pretty huge for a couple of reasons. But the first one is they are nerfing sources of crit weakness in the ways you applied them. So currently a very, very popular way to get crit weakness is to use a weapon swap with Effigy of Cruelty. This makes critical hits with spells apply 5 stacks of crit weakness. So a popular way to do this is use weapon swap, and you place down a persistent skill like Orb of Storms or Solo Orb, and you get max critical weakness on a boss. But both those methods are being nerfed. One, Effigy is being nerfed to only apply 3 weakness instead of 5, so it takes longer to ramp up. And second is stuff like Orb of Storms and Solo Orb and stuff like Firestorm are being nerfed for how fast to hit targets. So you won't be able to actually apply your Effigy stacks or your critical weakness stacks as fast as before. In case of Solo Orb, it's going on a 200 staff, so you just can't use Effigy with it. In case of Orb of Storms, they're nerfed to where it's only 1 hit every 4 seconds, and now only activates on spellcast, I believe. It's also only 8 hits total. And then Firestorms also haven't half as many hits as before. So yeah, they're nerfing all the ways to apply this pretty effectively, and also nerfing Effigy itself, although there might be new ways to apply it fast with new skills. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, they are nerfing sources of critical weakness, and they are giving Deadeye essentially a easy source of getting that critical weakness back that other classes, won't have access to. And just having an on-demand 10% base crit is massive. You won't need to weapon swap for this. You can use it for rares, even if you're starting out, you're pretty weak. And for weapons like bows and crossbows, this does just double your critical strike chance. So it is really, really massive for DPS. The next major region, and probably the biggest, is how versatile Deadeye is. So first of all, something that's very important to note is that Tailwind is skill speed. This is very, very important because skill speed in the game essentially applies to almost all actions. It's cast speed, it's attack speed, it's like Warcry speed, totem placement speed. So this makes Deadeye extremely versatile. You can play a spellcaster on Deadeye, you can play a totem-based character on Deadeye, you can play whatever, because skill speed is just generic scaling. Now it's not a more multiplier, it is just additive with stuff like attack speed, but because it's so generic, it just works with so many different type of builds. And this is the same deal with Far Shot and Endless Munitions. Both of this is just projectile damage, not projectile attack damage. So this works with spells, same with Endless Munitions, this also works with spells. So, one thing people are saying is that maybe you could play something like Arc Deadeye because you'll shoot 2 projectiles, so 2 arcs instead of 1, since the new arc is a projectile. But yeah, Deadeye is just so versatile because the Ascendancy itself gives generic power and not just like specifically bow attacks or attacks in general. It works on pretty much everything in the game. The next big reason is that Deadeye is the only Ascendancy in the game with moon speed on its Ascendancy. Amazon doesn't count because the move speed Amazon get is really, really situational and honestly just kind of bad. Yeah, it's also in the best spot on the tree to grab every movement speed node. We can just type movement speed on here, for example, and you can see right off the bat, you have movement speed on a start. This is 8%. You have movement speed over here, you have movement speed over here, and of course you go to monk area as well. So yeah, you have access to so many different movement speed nodes. Then you look at the top side of the tree and there's just nothing. This is minions, so this doesn't count. This is not movement speed. This doesn't count either. And this. So this is the only witch node that they have that gives them movement speed, 3% increase. That is it for witch. If you go by warrior, they also have nothing. In fact, warrior has stuff like reduced movement speed. So yeah, and then both merc and monk have some nodes, but as you can see, Deadeye's in the middle, or specifically ranger. So it's easy to grab the most amount of movement speed nodes compared to any other class, making you the fastest class in the game, which if you've played PoE2 for quite some time now, you do know that movement speed is the most valuable stat in the entire game. It is just the best stat. Speed in the end game is most important stat in any RPG, as you always reach a point where more damage / defense is not needed. So the only way to further scale your character is movement speed. And non-base characters, as I just showed you, really lack any option to get movement speed in the skill tree. So yeah, that is another big reason. Not only does Deadeye itself give movement speed through Tailwind, 10%, it also has access to the most amount of movement speed nodes without going too far in your skill tree. And then on top of all this, surprisingly, bows actually seem to be receiving buffs. Crossbows did receive a slight nerf, but are still overall really solid. Spears also received a nerf, but also still look very, very strong in a new patch. So yeah, Deadeye utilizes all 3 of these weapon types, spear, bows, crossbows, extremely well. They were extremely meta last league, and they seem to be like the top meta contenders for this league as well. So, as the class that can use all 3 of them, that also vastly boosts the popularity. Yeah, that's about it for the video. Deadeye this league does seem to be absolutely insane. Something to note is that the patch notes are not done. Maybe they do nerf something, but as it currently stands, yeah, a lot of people are going to be playing Deadeye for a bunch of different type of builds just because it's so generically, very powerful. This Ascendancy really works for anything in the game, as long as you can travel to the nodes you need to get. But yeah, that's about it.